as the wheels turn beneath you, chasing future to your past, doubling your vision, falling tears on broken glass.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Jenni Makes Podcast. This is a podcast primarily about knitting, but often with a good sprinkling of other crafts thrown in for good measure. So today there is a little bit of crochet, but I think everything else is knitting that I'll be talking about today. So I am feeling very rusty. I have not recorded a podcast episode in a long time, probably, I don't know, 4 months? So yeah, it's been a little while. For the sake of kind of preempting interruptions, I also have 2 co-hosts. Those are my 2 cats, Phoebe and Moose. They love being part of the podcast. They love jumping around my really precarious filming setup. So if there's an abrupt cut or you can hear little tapping sounds in the background, it's because they're padding around. So Phoebe is just lying down there and Moose is just lurking behind the camera trying to decide if she's going to cause some chaos. So they'll probably make an appearance at some point. I am trying a different filming location today. So part of the reason I've not recorded in a little while is at the start of the year I moved into a new house, and I mean, I'm sure most people are a lot quicker than I've been at getting the house sorted and decorated. The house is pretty much in, I would say, maybe even a worse state than it was when we first moved in. So I'm currently in the conservatory, which, again, it's not an ideal setup. It's probably really echoey. The walls are bare and marked, but this is where the sofa bed is with my crochet blanket, and I was like, this is as good a location as any, so I apologise if the acoustics are even more, I don't know, poor than usual. There we go, there's Moose making her appearance. You gonna say hi, honey? She does not really enjoy being picked up. Oh, yeah, there we go. We'll just leave it be. There we go. You just do whatever you want. So also, it's quite a sort of sunny day here, so I'm kind of regretting putting this cardigan on. I might just quickly talk about it because this is my one of my finished objects that I wanted to talk about today, and then I think I'm going to take it off because it's very thick and warm, and it is July. However, it is also the UK, so it's a bit of a mixed bag as to how warm it actually is. So I think I'm just gonna dive right in because, yeah, like I said, feeling very rusty, and probably the only way to alleviate that is by talking and trying to get in the flow. But yeah, welcome back to anyone who has watched any of my previous episodes. They've been very spotty and sporadic, and welcome to any new viewers. I'm going to try and record a bit more regularly. Recording every 4 months isn't great because you end up with a bit of a backlog and you can't really remember what you talked about last time. So yeah, I'm going to try and record a bit more often. Anyway, let's jump straight in. I'm going to refer to my handy notes just to remind myself and keep myself a bit on track. So, first thing I want to talk about, I apologise if Moose is going to have a big cleaning fest right behind me. That's probably a bit distracting. Hopefully she just keeps in that position. She really likes to show a little bum hole to the camera. That's something that she has done in previous episodes, so apologies in advance if you have to witness that. Okay, so first things first, this is a finished object. I was working on this in my last episode. I think it was almost done, but I also think I think it was like February I last recorded, so it's a long time ago. So this is a pattern by Ozetta. It's called the Oversized Seasons Cardigan, I think. Just looking at my notes. Yes, Oversized Seasons Cardigan. And I knitted it up in Studio Donegal DK, which is this gorgeous, like very thick, round DK, which has all these little like multicoloured specks in it, which was a really nice yarn to work with. So I'm probably not going to talk too much about this pattern. I feel like I needed to chat about it because it was the thing I was working on in my last episode, and it was like a big project, and probably, yeah, definitely the biggest project I finished this year. Which, yeah, I was kind of reflecting this morning and looking back through my finished projects, and I've got to say the 2024 has not been a big crafting year so far. Maybe I'll get some kind of second wind in the second half of the year, but yeah, there's not been a lot of making for whatever reason. So yeah, I definitely wanted to kind of kick things off talking about this one. So it's in a half fisherman's rib stitch, which is this lovely kind of puffy rib, and I made a few adjustments to the pattern. So the pattern directions have you knit the button band alongside the main fabric, and as you can probably tell, the button band is in kind of quite a bit of a finer gauge than the main fabric, and in the instructions it wanted you to hold those edge stitches on a double pointed needle and then use the small double pointed needle to knit across them, and then use your kind of main needle for the rest of the fabric. I decided that that was just too much faff. I figured that I would probably forget to do that, and then I'd have areas where, like probably where I'd knitted on the smaller needle or then knitted this on the bigger needle, and it just felt a bit kind of clunky. So what I did is I knitted the whole cardigan without the button band, and then I went right at the end and picked up stitches. It's kind of hard to show. I'll put a picture in, because I feel like if I stand up there you'll just then see my bottom half. I think it'd be quite difficult for you to see all of it. But yeah, it's once I finished it, I picked up all of the stitches and like right around, and then did a knitted on button band where you kind of like knit back and forth whilst incorporating the stitches that you've picked up. It did take me, I think, 3 attempts of doing that to get the gauge right. And I think I had to use a stupidly small needle. I probably picked up too many stitches. I can't remember now what my pickup rate was, but I think I probably picked up too many, because I was finding that this was like rippling and flaring out. I do think, I mean, it is hard to see. I'm going to try and stand up, but I don't think that's going to help. So it does kind of flick up a little bit, even after blocking. And I do think that maybe I did have a few too many rows. But I'd already redone it 3 times, so I couldn't be bothered to do it again. But overall, I am really happy with how this turned out. And even though maybe I did finish it later, because I remember finishing it thinking, oh, I'm not going to get much wear out of this before summer hits, but then I feel like I have worn it quite a lot, so maybe it was later than I realised. It's very thick, and it's kind of almost like a bomber shape. I was kind of half thinking that it'd be cool to put some pockets on, so have like pocket like here with like a diagonal kind of opening, if that makes sense. Not done that yet. Will I do it? I don't know. Because often once a project is finished, in my mind it's finished and I don't touch it again. But yeah, just I guess thinking of changes I might make if I made it again. I'm gonna pause for a second and take it off because the sun has hit the roof of the conservatory and I'm getting very warm. Don't know if it's easier to show now that it's not on my body. There it is. It's like a good length. It's not overly cropped because I went through a phase of overly cropping all of my garments and then not really wearing them because I was getting a drafty bit if my high-waisted jeans weren't quite high enough. So I am actually planning on making this pattern again, which I don't do very often. However, when I was knitting it, my mum came to visit and she really, really liked it. She wanted me to knit her one in exactly the same colour, which is where I drew the line because I think that would be too repetitive. However, I've bought yarn in kind of like a turquoisey colour. So I had initially said that I would make it for her birthday. However, that is on the 19th of July. I can't exactly remember what the date is today. I want to say it's a Monday, maybe it's the 8th, I think, of July. So, and I've not started it, so that's obviously not going to be done in time. However, I might think about adding pockets, that kind of like sideways bomber pockets onto that one. But yeah, probably speak to my mum first before I do that. But on the whole, it was a good pattern. Again, if anyone's watched my like earlier episodes when I've been talking about it, I don't want to talk about it too much because I do think it was almost finished the last time I showed it. So I don't just want to go over things again. But yeah, I don't think I've ever made any of Ozetta's patterns before. And it was pretty thorough. I think I had to fudge things because my gauge was really off, but like both the row and the stitch gauge in a way that if I made the needle size smaller, it would like only resolve one of my issues, because I think, I can't exactly remember now, but I think my row gauge was too tight and then my stitch gauge was too loose. So I don't really know what you do about that, because if you go down a needle size, then you're only fixing one of those elements. So I kind of had to fudge the kind of increases around the front, but it fits exactly as I'd want it to, and obviously not wearing it very much at the moment, but initially when our kind of spring summer took quite a long time to arrive here in Newcastle, I was wearing it. And you're going to be hearing all about it again on the podcast probably, because I'm going to be starting a second one. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to get that cast on. Yeah, not anytime soon, because as you will see as I go further into this podcast episode, I've got a few kind of big projects on the needles. And sorry, I'm just a bit distracted because Phoebe is she's looking like she's thinking about climbing onto my precarious filming structure. Ooh. She's just got her paws up at the moment. Oh, yeah, sorry, that's her on it, that's why it's wobbling. So this is Phoebe. You need to say hi, Phoebe. Hello. I'm seeing if I can distract her from just climbing all over my precarious structure. She's very cute, but she's also very curious. Yeah, so I think that's everything I need to say about the Ozetta cardigan. I don't want to ramble on too much, particularly as I talked about it a lot in my past episode, and we'll be talking about it in future episodes. Sorry, cat management. And she's also molting at the moment, so sorry if you've just seen a big halo of fluff come off her. So yeah, that's the Oversized Seasons cardigan by Ozetta. Okay, next thing I want to chat about is a finish object that is hot off the needles. I cast the second one of these off, clue there what they are, yesterday, so they're not even blocked. I've been wearing them, so I don't even know if I am going to block them. I do usually block my socks because I always think they look a little bit better when you take a picture of them, and I like having a nice finished object picture. However, I don't know, I feel like they've actually flattened out quite a lot, so I might be able to take a good picture without needing to block them. So here they are. These are, for me, they are slightly too big. I know that, like, I've heard that a few people, when they knit socks in like a non-superwash, no nylon yarn, I know that people knit them a little bit longer with the anticipation that they're going to felt a little bit. I've not really found that my socks felt loads, at least, well, I've had a couple that have accidentally ended up in the washing machine, but ordinarily I don't really find that they felt. So I don't know if I'm just going to end, like, they're just kind of a centimetre too long on the feet, but I don't think it'll bother me too much. Anyway, these are just a kind of improvised, self-drafted 2x2 broken rib sock. Like, it's 2x2 broken rib all the way down, so I quite like how you've not got a cinched in bit. I quite like how that looks on my socks. And I've, like, the rib is like all over the sock, so even after doing the heel flap and gusset, I then just continue like straight back into the 2x2 rib because I feel like they fit the best. It does definitely add on time. However, I have quite narrow feet, and I really like how the kind of continuing the rib looks and how it feels. I feel like it hugs my foot a bit better. So this yarn is my Desert Island yarn. I love this yarn. It is Mondim by Retrosaria Rosa Pomar, which is a really lovely Portuguese sock yarn, no nylon, non-superwash. And I believe that this was, I want to say it was a special colourway for Barcelona Knits, but I might be making that up. I feel like it was a special colourway though. I got it in Edinburgh at Be Inspired Fibres, which is a lovely shop near the Meadows in Edinburgh. It's quite chaotic, but that is how I like my yarn shops. I like that you have to have kind of a dig around, and this was the last ball of this colourway. And I think I'd seen a few people posting about it on Instagram, so I was happy to get my hands on it. I think it's funny, it's one of those that like in the ball it was really hard to tell how it was going to knit up. And I think I thought it would be a bit more speckly than it is. I guess it's a bit more, I mean, I don't really know what you'd call this, like micro stripey. But I like how it's kind of consistent all the way through, like even on the heel flap, even though obviously that's like half the number of stitches, it doesn't look like jarringly different really from the leg. So yes, another pair for me. I recently got a pair of like Birkenstock, you wouldn't call them sliders, you wouldn't call them clogs. I've got them on my feet now, I don't know if it's weird to just show them. These. And I mean, I already wore my knitted socks a lot, but I feel like it's given them a whole new lease of life where I actually feel quite cool wearing them with these shoes. So it's definitely spurred me on to like cast on a few more socks for myself. So this is I think this is the first pair I've finished this year. But yeah, I've already cast on another pair. Maybe I'll just immediately segue into those. So the next pair aren't actually for me. These are for my boyfriend. So anyone who watched probably the last 2 episodes, because I feel like I was whinging on about it quite a lot, will know that I had almost finished a pair of socks for my boyfriend, all over ribbed. I'd also ribbed the foot, which I don't normally do on his socks, but I had done because I was like, well, I like the fit, so he should benefit from the nice cozy fit as well. And when I moved house, I have come to the conclusion now that many months have passed and I've still not found them, that they accidentally ended up in a charity shop bag, along with a load of tote bags. I think with the cats really like to chew my knitting, so I often just kind of throw things in like zip up bags or like wrap them up in tote bags. And I think what had happened with the move is that the almost finished pair of socks, kills me, with my Chiaogu needles on, wrapped up in a tote bag, and accidentally went into the charity shop pile, never to be seen again. So I was kind of resentful of having to start another pair, and I guess hence why I've knit myself a pair before casting him on another pair. But time has passed now. I felt ready to cast him on a pair. So here they are. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of the tail that's flapping around. So I'm just doing, I mean, it's kind of hard to see, I don't know if you can tell, just about. I'm doing a 3x1 broken rib. I love broken rib. I do it on all of my socks now. I never do stocking stitch socks anymore, really. I just don't really like the fit, and also I find it probably sounds counterintuitive, but because I'm sure a broken rib sock takes me longer to knit than a stocking stitch sock would. However, there's something kind of addictive about doing a row of plain and a row of rib, row of plain, row of rib, that, I don't know, it like spurs me on more, whereas when it's just stocking stitch, I think I get a little bit bored, and it just feels like the rows all blend into one, and I'm not sure if I've done like 1 row or 10 rows, and I don't know, I think this really helps with my motivation, and it makes it a lot easier to count the rows, because I'm just counting the purl bumps and I have to count half as many rows. So this is a Regia yarn. It's literally just called the Sock Wool, and it's one of the Arne Carlos colourways, like a self-striping one. I feel like I've had this in stash for quite a long time. I'm trying to work through my sock yarns, and I usually keep the non-superwash ones for me, and then my partner gets the superwash ones because he's like a little bit harder on his socks, and he also likes them to fit a bit tighter, and I figured there's probably going to be a bit more friction there, so it makes sense to have ones with a bit of nylon that are also superwash that aren't just going to felt and get holes in. So yeah, I'm liking how it's knitting up so far. I literally only cast this on like yesterday evening, but that's the addictive thing about stripes, is that you just want to keep knitting and seeing what the next colour is, particularly as I'm pulling from the centre, so it's like, ooh, what's it going to be? I've been looking at the picture on the ball band, and I don't know if it just doesn't correspond to the yarn exactly, because I really can't figure out, like, this kind of pinky stripe. I mean, like, you probably can't see it, I feel like the picture quality isn't good enough, but I cannot see it at all on here, so I don't really know if that actually corresponds to this exactly, but I really like how the colours are knitting up, and so does my partner, so that's the important thing. So they will probably be my work knitting project, because they just slot away in my convenient little baggy bag, just to have in the background. I always like to have a pair of socks just plugging away. So I feel like I've absolutely raced through my projects. Like I said, I did work on a few other things which have like been cast on and cast off, or yeah, started and finished over the last few months, and I thought about like maybe showing pictures of them, because a lot of them actually have gifted, but I was like, no, let's clean slate, let's just start with what's currently on the needles or have been like recently cast off. But yeah, I feel like I apologise if this is a bit of a frazzled all over the place episode. I do feel out of practice. So the last thing that I'm going to show is, oh, I'm going to try not to unravel it as I hold it up. Ooh, of course I'm like in the middle of a row. Classic podcaster mistake. So I am making a scrappy sock yarn baby blanket. There it is in all its glory. Sorry, I've got my finger through this so it doesn't unravel. So I think, I can't remember actually if this is called the linen stitch or the moss stitch, but it's a crochet stitch where basically you work one single crochet stitch and then chain one, and then in the next row you're working the single crochet stitch into the space where you chained, so it kind of like blends the colours together. I'm making this with 2 strands of sock yarn held together. I'm trying to work through all of my scraps, which feels really good actually. I'm kind of like happy at how much I've managed to make just from using scraps. So a lot of the yarn in here is river knits. So I, years and years ago now, I want to say like 6 or 7 years ago, I bought a sweater quantity of yarn in River Knits BFL Superwash 4-ply, and I think I started a couple of projects in it, and I know now that superwash yarn for garments really isn't my favourite thing to work with. I like things that have maybe a bit more of a texture, and I just like the slippery feeling of superwash is just not what I really kind of prefer to knit with now. When it's baby knits, like that's a different thing, like I will do, because I'm aware that not all new parents want to hand wash their baby knits, and if it's kind of, yeah, sock knitting, sometimes I will, but basically I had these like skeins of the River Knits, which was, it's beautiful hand-dyed yarn, but it just sat in stash for ages. It'd like been knit up and then unravelled and knit up and unravelled. One of the skeins, unfortunately, was infiltrated by carpet bugs a few years ago, so that had to go. So I think I still had about 200 grams left, and then I just used up all the other kind of leftover scraps of sock yarn that I had, and it was quite nice like going through it and being like, oh well, I made those socks for like my partner's grandma, and I made those socks for me, and those socks for my partner, and it was quite nice going through and remembering all the different yarns. Yeah, this yarn here is a yarn that my friend brought me back from New Zealand. Like, this is, I don't know, probably doesn't really show up, but this one has a bit of a sparkle, and it was dyed by someone who I was friends with when I lived in Iceland. Like, I don't know, it's just been quite nice to like get all of these yarns out of stash and into a project. So I'm using like a log cabin structure. So I don't know how clear like that is to see, but yeah, I think it is showing up. So I started off with a square in the middle and then like picked up stitches along the square and then like did the kind of rectangle, and then you like build off it from there. I'm trying to see where I was. So yeah, so it's like start with a square and then did this rectangle and then did that rectangle, and then it's kind of like working around like that. Sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. I think it's from stroking Phoebe. Oh, she's right next to me as well. She's just quite hairy at the moment. Whew. So this is a friend, this is going to be a gift for a friend who's having a baby in, I think next month. I don't really know how big to do it. Like when I've been looking at baby blanket measurements online, that like the recommendations have really varied. I figure like the bigger the better, particularly as this is quite a thick blanket and the baby is due like end of August. So probably isn't going to need a really thick blanket. So it makes sense to do it bigger, because then when the child is bigger, it's still going to be able to use the blanket when it's cold, if that makes sense. So I think ideally, like if you're if you can see, I've got like the square in the middle and then 1, 2, 3, 4 like wedges. I don't know how much you can see that or if that even makes sense what I'm talking about. But like basically I've gone round the central square 4 times. Like this is like I'm on the last section here. Ideally I wanted to go round 7 times, because I think a lot of the blankets like on the bigger end gave like those like measurements that corresponded to that. However, I don't have that much yarn left, so I've been holding together the yarn. Sorry, Phoebe's now like sat on the, she's fast asleep on the ball of yarn that I was going to hold up. That's not hold up. So I'm now kind of onto like the plain yarns, and then I'm always trying to hold it with like a hand dye to still get that sort of like speckledy texture and look. Initially I was trying to always make it so that the second colour I was holding was the River Knits yarn to kind of make it look consistent. However, I kind of realised that I was rapidly running out of that, so what was I going to show? I think I've like forgotten a whole project. I thought I've just unzipped a bag and been like, oh, I've not talked about that one. So this isn't actually the last thing I'm talking about. This is the penultimate. So yeah, here's the River Knits. So you can see it's lovely. I think this one, oh, I can't remember what it was called, but I think it was like a Monet inspired one. So it's got these lovely pops of like neon with like a blue background. So I've been holding it with, yeah, a lot of the sections are held with this one, but this is all I have left now. This is also what's now like I've kind of recently introduced. And then I've like got another plain one, but I am aware that I'm rapidly running out. This is the leftovers from my socks, but I can't actually decide if I'm going to include them because I don't know if like the origin red is a bit too different from what I've been, yeah, like holding up there, I don't think I'm going to use it because I think it's a bit too different from kind of the colour story of the rest of the blanket. So even though it does feel very virtuous, like using up all these little bits of yarn, because also like I don't really know what I'm going to do with that. Anyway, but I don't think it really goes, so I'm going to scrap that plan. So I don't know how much bigger I'm going to be able to make this, basically. I'm hoping I can at least go one more time around the edge, and then I've saved some of the green from the centre, which I'm then going to do as a border, because I feel like that will like tie it in nicely. When I started this project, I didn't know what kind of baby my friends was having. They are having a boy, and I'm hoping it's not too girly. Like there's some pink there. I mean, I'm not bothered by stuff like that, but I know that sometimes people are when it's like newborns. People want, people don't want to put a boy in pink or whatever. But I think it's okay. I think it's okay. So I'm really enjoying working on that. It's like a really good like TV crochet project, and it's been quite satisfying to just see it go round and round and round. I think what I found with blanket projects is that I'm a lot more likely to get it finished in a timely manner if it's like all done in one piece and I'm not doing like individual patches which are then seamed. I'm gonna see if I can move the cat off. God, she's really underneath it. There we go. That's my little scrap that I'm trying to use up. This was nervous fibre yarn, which I knitted up a pair of socks for my boyfriend's grandma, and I was really jealous of them. I really wish I'd kept the yarn, and I think she's now on maternity leave, so I can't get hold of it at the moment. I'm hoping she comes back to dyeing because her colours were beautiful, and it was just nice to have like the hand-dyed look on a non-superwash sock yarn. I think the colours looked really beautiful. So that is my baby blanket. I'm hoping I'll get this finished soon, or at least a size that I can just call it a day. I don't think it's too far off. Like, I think it would go over a car seat and you'd definitely be able to wrap a newborn in it, but I guess bigger is probably better when it comes to blankets. Otherwise the baby will just outgrow it. So that is the blanket. Yeah, I thought I was done, and then when I was unzipping a project bag to show the yarn, and then realised, oh, I actually have a whole other project to talk about. So I feel like I need to like collect my thoughts. I'm probably talking really quickly. This project has caused me a lot of head scratching. I've had to do a lot of ripping back, a lot of tinking back, a lot of unraveling sections and like dropping down to fix bits. So this is the Moby Sweater by Petite Knit. It looks weirdly long and thin at the moment because when it blocks out, it goes like kind of from being like to like, if that makes sense. So that's why it looks like a weird like tunic dress at the moment. The proportions will change. So yeah, this is Moby Sweater by Petite Knit. I think this is the first time I've done an adult pattern by Petite Knit. I have mixed feelings. So one of the reasons it took me so long to get this project off the ground is because when she lists the gauge in the pattern, she just lists like, I can't remember exactly how it's phrased, but it's like texture pattern. And so obviously you can see that we've got quite a few different textures in this. So it's like, does the texture pattern respond to like this kind of lattice? Does it respond to the double moss stitch? Does it respond to the cable? Because when I measure the gauges of all these different sections, all of the kind of stitch counts over 10 centimetres were really different. And what it turns out that she'd done is measured the finished circumference of the sweater and then divided it by 10. Which I hadn't even thought about doing, and it wasn't until one of my friends, when I was doing, like, I basically knitted, I think, like, you knit the back first. It's kind of puckering because I've put the neckline on without blocking it, but you knit the back first down to the armhole, and I did that and was like, this looks really small, and when I blocked it, I was, like, 10 centimetres off. It was, like, my gauge was way too tight, and I was like, well, what on earth am I meant to be aiming for if all of these texture patterns are giving a very different stitch gauge? And then my friend was like, well, have you thought about, yeah, working out what it would be if you divided the whole circumference? Do I mean by 10? I'm trying to think what you do. Does that make sense where you'd like, oh no, I don't mean by 10. What I mean is like taking the finished measurement and then dividing it by the number of stitches to get, is that what I mean? I think that's what I mean. Anyway, I feel like it could have been made a lot clearer in the pattern, i.e. maybe she could have said like over the lattice, or like maybe even given the gauges for like the 3 different distinct sections so that you would have had a better idea what you were aiming for. I kind of feel a little bit like she's probably the biggest hand knitting designer, or certainly like in the top 5, and it just felt a little bit lazy to me that she'd not broken down the gauge in a way that was like a lot easier to work out what you should be aiming for. So I think I had to go up 2 needle sizes, from what the pattern recommended, which I do often have to do, so I probably should have figured that out, but yeah, just caused a lot of head scratching. And then I made the mistake of doing a lot of this while on night shifts, and the amount of times that I basically, this is like a mock cable kind of twist, and like you're kind of knitting stitches, you're kind of, what are you doing? It looks like you're decreasing, but you're not. It's just kind of the way you work the stitches to make them look like they've crossed over. But basically it's really easy to accidentally decrease, and the amount of times I did that, and then when it got to like the next pattern row, like I didn't have enough stitches, or like I didn't always notice until like things got to a point and I realised, oh, things have got to a point like a row earlier in this section than they have there. Ugh. So that drove me a little bit crazy. However, once I got like the pattern committed to memory, and probably once I stopped working on it on night shifts, because yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing this kind of project on a night shift, I did like really get into a swing with it. However, I have not taken this out of its bag in probably a month. So we're seeing it at the same time. I don't think I've seen it. Yeah, I don't think I've looked at it in a month. The reason for that is it's for my partner. It was his 30th birthday on the 15th of June. I was really trying to get it done by then. And yeah, that time has been and gone, and I think I was feeling a bit disheartened when I hadn't got it finished in time, and then it kind of meant that it sat in its bag for a month. But he started to ask about it again. I think it's, even though it's July, I feel like British summers never really last that long if they even turn up in the first place. So I think it's time to like get my head back in the game. I need to like measure it and see where I'm at. I've got a feeling that I maybe only had like another inch or so of pattern to do, and then it's like 1 by 1 ribbing for the bottom. And then I think what I might do just to reassure myself that this is gonna fit and isn't gonna be a weird like tunic dress, I might block the body, and then I'm pretty sure the pattern gets you to pick up stitches around the sleeve and then knit them attached, rather than knitting them separately and seaming them. So yeah, I should probably do that. Oh, I didn't think I've mentioned the yarn. So the yarn is, there's a ball here, which I don't really know what's happening with this ball. It's like centre is all splurged out. So this is Cascade 220. Good old workhorse yarn, in the non-superwash. And I've not worked with it in years, but I've really enjoyed working with it. It's a lovely, like, smooth, round yarn, which is great for cables and texture. I think the colour's really pretty. It's quite hard to photograph. I mean, I feel like it's probably showing up okay. I don't know if you're getting, like, the full, like, nuance of the colour, but it's kind of got, like orangey specks in it, in amongst the mustard. So, yeah. I just need to get it back. I need to get my head back around it again, I think. I think it's just been sat in its bag for too long. Thank God I didn't take the needles off and forget the needle size, because that's what I often like to do about projects that have had a little hibernation, but no, they're still firmly attached, so yes, I'm hoping maybe to get this done over the next month, because yeah, it'll start getting colder and I think it'll really suit him. I think it'll really suit this colour, so yeah. I'm kind of looking in the camera that like the transition from in the round to flat double moss stitch looks kind of weird. I hope I didn't make a mistake there. Oh well, it's too high up. I'm not doing anything about it. I have actually, I'm definitely guilty of being a bit of a perfectionist, particularly with my knitting, but this project, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the knitting on the night shifts or like feeling like I've got a bit of a deadline, but I have made a few like silly or like frustrating mistakes with this, which I'm just trying to ignore. One being, so the way you knit this is you knit the back first down to the armhole, and then you knit the front and you join them. And for whatever reason, I've joined them where the last pattern row on the front and the last pattern row on the back do not correspond. So it's fine because never, like when it's on, you're never going to notice. It's just for me when I'm knitting it, I'm like, when I'm going round and round, I'm like, oh, it's a cable row on this side, but it's not a cable row for another like 4 rows on the other side. So that kind of irritates me, because I don't like it when I know things aren't perfect, but nobody will ever notice, so I just need to keep telling myself that. Apart from the initial like irritation with limited gauge information, I would rate the pattern. I found it like pretty straightforward to work from, and yeah, I think it's gonna be really nice. I just hope that it fits okay. I've shown my boyfriend, I like wrapped it up and gave it to him in this unfinished state, so he knows that he's getting it. He picked the colour, but he didn't know what design I was doing, so he likes it, so that's good. So yeah, I think that's just going to plug on in the background. I need to like get it off my lap because it is very warm. It's getting really hot in them. In the conservatory, the cats are like sprawled around, slowly cooking. So I think knitting wise, that is everything. A little like aside, I don't know if anyone who's watching is going to Barcelona Knits this year. Yes, I know it's not until November, but the reason why I'm thinking about it is because me and my friend are going and we've just booked our flights today. So I don't know if anyone else is going. Yeah, I've never been to like an international knitting festival before. It feels very exciting. So that's kind of in other like knitting related news, that's kind of what I've been up to, is like thinking about that. And me and my friend have talked about like picking a garment pattern and doing our own little knit along, which is cute. Yeah, we're very nerdy. We've had like a few, we definitely have a few garments which we've knit together and then have cute matching pictures of, which I love. So I don't know if anyone else is going to Barcelona Knits, or if anyone else has any other like knitting festival plans this summer. I don't really know what else is on, to be honest. I think we've got one there's a relatively new one in Newcastle that started last year, which I think is on next month. But yeah, I would love to hear what you're working on. Love to hear if you've got any plans over the summer or over the next few months for knitting festivals. Would you recommend any that are coming up? But yeah, I think I'm going to stop now because I've actually rambled for a lot longer than I thought, and I'm getting really warm. So thank you so much for watching, and fingers crossed it won't take me another 4 or 5 months to record an episode. I'm going to see if Phoebe wants to say goodbye. You going to say goodbye, Phoebe? There we go. Bye bye. See you next time. Happy knitting.